Hi, it's Helen from Heritage Organic Seeds, and today we're going to do the Sow-a-long for our Cucumber Sonja that was in our April subscription box. So this is a nice dark skinned variety of cucumber, and it can grow up to 25 centimetres long, and there is nothing that beats the taste of a nice fresh homegrown cucumber. So let's get sowing. So you can sow your cucumber seeds in trays, modules, or even small pots. So to save me time later on, so I don't need to repot them later, I'm going to sow mine in these 9cm pots. That just means that they're 9cm across the top, and you can see they've got a nice deep pot for the plants to develop a nice root system. But please do feel free, if you want to sow them into trays or modules, that is fine as well. Use what you have. So I'm going to sow one seed per pot. Cucumber seeds are very similar to the squash and the courgettes. They are a lot smaller though, but similar in terms of they're just kind of flat and thin, as you can see there. So same principle as the courgettes and squash, we're going to try and sow them on their sides so that the water will just run off them and they're not going to sit and collect on the seed, because if it does that, it'll cause rotting. So do try and sow them on the side. You only need to sow your cucumber seeds about 1 centimetre deep. They're only small seeds, so they don't need to be too deep at all. 1 centimetre will be just fine. And then cucumbers do not like frost at all, so you want to keep these at about 20 degrees while they germinate, but they will not be ready to go out into the ground until after the risk of frost has passed. Trust me, I have done it before. I've done it a bit earlier and I've lost them all. So pop our little plant label in and then just give them a light water. Again, you don't want the soil to be soaking, just a nice amount just so that the soil is moist. So if you've sown in trays or modules, once your cucumber seeds germinate and they are large enough to handle, then you can then look to transplant them into pots like this. So like a 9cm pot is perfect. You want to keep them indoors or under cover, like I say, up until about middle of May when the last frost hit. Do check the last frost in your area though. If you live in the south, your last frost date is going to be earlier than mine up here in Cheshire. And by the same token, if you're up in Scotland, it's probably going to be a bit later. So please do check the frost for your area before you decide when to plant your plants out. But for me in Cheshire, which is sort of about the middle of the country, it's about mid-May. Before you plant your cucumbers out, you want to make sure that they are hardened off, and we recommend that for any seedling, and it just prevents the plant from going into shock when the conditions just suddenly change. It gets them used to wind, different fluctuating temperatures throughout the day. And like I say, yeah, it stops them going into shock and just means they will just thrive when they go into their final growing position. If you're growing your cucumbers outside, you want to space them about 60 centimetres apart. Some people like to use trellis or canes to grow their cucumbers up. To be honest, I just like to let them sprawl along the ground like a squash, and that has always worked absolutely fine for me, and also helps just keep those weeds down as well. Cucumbers are also going to do really well if you have a greenhouse, if you want to grow in there as well. But I tend to keep my greenhouse for the tomatoes. But this is an outdoor variety of cucumber, so they will be good to go outside too. If you are growing in a greenhouse or a polytunnel, then you will need to keep potting on your cucumbers as they outgrow their pots. You're not going to keep growing them in sort of this size pot all summer. You'll need to gradually get bigger and bigger. And just the same as the squash and the courgettes, you will need to keep your cucumber plants well watered throughout the summer. They are really, really thirsty plants, and that is how we get those nice, juicy cucumbers. You can harvest your cucumbers when they reach around about 20 centimetres in length, or basically just whenever it reaches the right kind of size for you. But around 20 to 25 centimetres would be ideal. And I just like to snip them off so I'm not damaging the plant in any way. So try and snip them off with some secateurs or something. And then just keep picking them. The more you pick, the more the plant will produce. So just pick them and enjoy them, and I promise you, you will never ever think a supermarket cucumber comes anything close to a homegrown one. And if you don't have a greenhouse and you don't want to direct sow, just try sowing a few seeds of a little seed tray and keep that inside. It's really not rocket science. Just have a go, see what works for you, what you prefer. So we've got our 3 seeds per cell, and we're just going to cover with a light layer of compost. So just make sure that compost is nice and crumbly between your fingers so you're not adding more clumps to the top. The general rule for covering your seeds is to cover the seeds at least as deep as the seed is wide, if that makes sense. So the beetroot seeds are quite thick, so I'd maybe say about half a centimetre of soil on the top if you're not sure. Again, it's not rocket science, don't do them too deep. Just scatter a thin layer of soil. That is all there is to it. And of course, don't forget to mark your seeds, because you might think that you'll remember what you sowed where. I promise you, you won't. Even the best gardeners forget what they sowed. So I've just taken my lollipop sticks that were in the subscription box, and I've just written the variety and the date, just so that I know when I sowed my beetroot, and just pop those in like that. And then just give it a light water. So your beetroot needs temperatures of around 8 degrees Celsius to germinate, so not too high. So I'm just going to keep this module tray in my greenhouse at home, where I'll get lots of sunshine during the day, and that should be fine just to get those going. And we're just going to grow them on for a little bit, and then when the seedlings are large enough to handle, we're just going to take those out of each individual cell, just pop the cell out, and then transplant that whole cell into the ground about 10 centimeters apart. So hopefully, if the weather stays like this, it's not going to be too long before these go into the ground. And then again, that's just going to free up so much space as the weather warms up. Do make sure that you harden off your seedlings before they go into the ground. We recommend that for any seed that's been grown either inside or in the greenhouse. Hardening off will just help them acclimatise to the new growing conditions, and it just means that we're going to take them outside in the morning, pop them back inside or in the greenhouse in the evening. Do that for a few days, maybe around about a week if you can, and they'll just get used to the different kind of temperatures during the day. They'll get used to wind. They're just going to get used to the elements in general, and it just helps to prevent them going into any kind of shock when you do plant them into their final growing positions. Once they're in their final position, we're just going to keep the area weed free and keep our beetroot bulbs well watered over the summer. And then, all being well, we should be able to start harvesting our beetroot from around about July and on into the autumn. So as I said before, do keep successional sowing your beetroot. Set a little reminder on your phone if you need to, and then just keep the process going, so you've always got some fresh, delicious beetroot bulbs to enjoy over the summer and into the autumn. I hope you've enjoyed this sew along video. If you have any questions at all, as always, please do feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to help.